Welcome to the Refs Need Love To podcast, a show that gives you a real, raw, and behind-the-scenes view of one of the hardest jobs on the pitch, the referee. I'm your host, David Gerson, a grassroots referee with 7 years of experience and over 1,000 matches under my belt. In today's episode, we will talk with one of the most well-known American referees, Ted Unkel. He has been a professional referee for over 13 years. He's centered over 125 games in the MLS and was on the FIFA International Panel of Refs for 5 years. He is a true gentleman, and I thoroughly enjoyed our chat. I hope you enjoy it as well. Here's part one of our conversation. Ted, what an absolute pleasure to get to sit down with today. Thank you for taking the time.
No, David, it's my pleasure. Thanks for making the trek over to the Starling.
I know. We're right here in Midtown Atlanta. So what brings you to town, Ted?
The Atlanta Red Bull game tonight over at Mercedes-Benz.
That's fantastic, fantastic. So Ted, I followed your career and I know your story, but man, I think our listeners would love to hear how you actually got into refereeing, how you became a ref.
Yeah, so I've told the story a bunch of times, although I really enjoy the story. So it's when I was about 12, you're playing as you do when you're a kid. And my dad was a referee. He made it to the state level back then. So to spend more time with him on weekends, I would go and referee with him. Yeah. So there's the combination of spending time with my dad. There was the fact that he gave me his game fee. So it was the best part-time job ever. I was getting double pay. And you're part of the game that you're playing at the time. So it keeps me active. And, you know, we love sport and we love soccer and we love spending time with our dads. So that's where it kicked it off. And then beyond that, it was a really long, unintended road. I think it was grade 7 for 9 years, 10 years, maybe back then. Part of that was referee local. Don't have to run a fitness test.
Right.
Nobody knows what else is out there.
Right. And grade 7, for those who don't remember, that was kind of like the state level of a referee at that point?
No, it wasn't even that. 6 was the state level.
Okay.
So 7 was that line right before that you could really go to your local park,
right,
knock out some games, go home, and not think twice about refereeing until you do it again the next Saturday or whatever that may be. And that was perfectly good. I could never wrap my head around, like, why would I drive a long distance to referee what in essence is a 2-hour game? Why would I drive longer than it's going to be the time for me to get there?
Yeah.
And then by happenstance, the whole State Cup series, right, where we still have that, your youth State Cup. Someone identified me on one of those local games and said, "Do you want to go to Pensacola, Panama City, like the Panhandle?" It was a crazy long drive, and I said, "No, I don't think I want to."
You're down in Tampa area,
down in Sarasota.
Sarasota,
yeah. So it was quite the commitment. But then you're like, well, that could lead to this.
Yeah.
And sure enough, I did it, and you just get that appetite.
And so, how old were you at that point?
Oh shoot, it must have been early 20s.
Yeah. So you started at around 13, 14?
Started at 12.
Wow. Okay.
Started at 12. And then, probably it wasn't until early 20s where I started getting...
That's really wild. So 10 years pretty much at what we would consider today the grassroots level before you made that jump.
At least.
Yeah.
At least. You know, and part of that too is, right, I was playing baseball at the time. I go on to play college baseball.
Wow.
So even when we were at university, I would do the intramural stuff just to kind of keep the whistle wet, as we say.
Yeah.
But once again, I had no idea what the path was. And, you turn on the TV, and at that time, you watch soccer for the team or whoever you support. And now, as we are referees, you watch the game because you watch the referee. You can't, and I can't undo that. I can't unsee that, as they say, right? But so that whole period of time, there was no professional path. Yeah. And then you realize when you do turn on TV and watch your EPL game or whatever that is, like, there's a man in the middle. There's people carrying flags. Those games have to be covered by officials too. So how do you get there?
Right. Yeah. So you go to the state tournament. Someone identifies you as someone that has and it's funny, you hear people talk about the look. They've got the presence, they've got the maturity, they've got control of the game. They see that, and then how do you go from say state tournament to then all of a sudden you're a professional today? What does that look like? How long did that take?
Yeah, so that was fairly rapid.
Wow.
Once I got there, so I got really lucky. That first state tournament, I was identified to go to regionals. So you get that piece. You hop on a plane. You represent more than yourself, right? So there's a lot of pride that goes along with that. Had gone to regionals 2 times. So on the third, went to nationals, went back to nationals. And then right about that time, WPS was starting. So there was 4 of us, I remember, that were called down to a WPS camp. And
is it the women's professional league before NWSL?
Okay. Yeah, but after WUSA.
Okay.
And then before NWSL. Yeah. Right. So we're down in Boca and did this little camp, and then sure enough, we kicked off the WPS and was in that league for 3 years. So my rise to eventually MLS came through the women's game. So being married to Christina and her rise through internationally and the professional women's game. I like that I have that chapter as well. I can relate more, and it allowed me as we come up through college. Right, college season is just starting. Refereeing on the women's side, refereeing on the men's side, which is a different task. Yeah,
and now you met your wife at one of these events, right?
Yeah, sort of, kind of. You know, it's not the glorified story of we were on the field and whatever, kicking up grass. But she's from Fort Myers, so we're an hour or so away. And, you run into people as you do at tournaments. Yeah. So, and then struck up conversation, and the rest is kind of history.
That's hilarious. So talk to me now. So how long have you been a professional referee with the MLS?
Right. So MLS is my 12th year. Wow. 11th year. I started 2012. 2012 coming in. So before that, like I said, it was the WPS. So we had professional referee badges at the time. Okay. That's when Paul Tamburino came up with these yellow, red, and black. We never knew which color to wear it, what game to wear it on. So technically that professional referee had started then. And then I think A-League was first. We came into the USL Championship, whatever. And then into MLS. So you start as a 4th official. There was a 4th official pool. And then you try to work your way into getting a whistle. I remember distinctly. I was Christina and I were on a cruise in the Mediterranean, and I get a phone call, and it's Alan Brown, and I'm like, why is Alan calling? Yeah. And you could, the international connection, you can barely hear. And he's like, Peter Walton at the time was the head of our refereeing, and then he says, hey, Peter would like to speak with you, and sure enough, that was my first appointment. Wow. So I went to New England and did New England DC. Ran around like a chicken with their head cut off, and then you get another one. And I don't think it starts sinking in until I don't know, 15, 20 in, right? I mean, it's all a blur at the beginning, and you kind of like, are you really here, and what does it mean, and you got to get used to the game, right? Yeah. Every game has a different level of foul, as I'm sure we'll talk about. Every game has a different level of pace, strategy to it. So you got to get comfortable. It takes a long time to do that.
Yeah, it's interesting. You talk about things that might have been 12 years ago. The league has changed a lot in 12 years, just in terms of, it seems, the crowds, the intensity, the interest, the passion. Have you noticed that, like as a referee group? Have you noticed that? Has it changed how you do what you do, or how you manage the game?
Yeah, tremendously. Like you talked about the passion in the crowds, and that feeds into the environments. Right. I was in Austin the other night. Right, the big comeback that came to 4-3. Every time they score a goal, the lights go down. The green kind of comes up. It's hard to hear. Yeah. Right. It's hard to hear, and that could get you. It influences the players. A little bit more pace on the field, a bit harder challenges. So that plays into where I remember early in my career, Wednesday night out in LA, Chivas USA, smattering of people, the guy chewing on the popcorn, and it's just air out of the stadium. It's very difficult, and there was a lot of similarities during the COVID period when we came back to empty stadium and going where I'm going tonight at Mercedes-Benz and not having a soul in there, and it was not something I want to do again. You feed off that energy. So yes, the environments have certainly changed. Now we're adding teams, so the workload has changed. You have to manage that as you go. And I'm not getting any younger. So and then the style of play has changed. Yeah. Right. We have a lot more Central and South American influence in the league, which is different than European influence or what we come out of the American college game. It's just different. You got to manage through that. Roster depth in terms of talent has gotten deeper, right? I think in the beginning, you would want to say that the first 5 starters there were pretty good,
right?
And it kind of goes off. I think we're much deeper in that. But you have to still plan on that, right? Who's coming off the bench? When does that happen? But it is a much different game.
So one thing, that you're alluding to a little bit, we're talking about the expansion of the game, but there's now, I think, twice as many teams as there was, 12, 13 years ago. Now we also have VAR as well, which wasn't, in the league, 13, 14 years ago. Mm-hmm. So can you describe now as a professional ref what your workload is like? When do you, learn about your assignments, and what's a 2-week span look like for you?
Yeah, so different between the first CBA that we had and now our CBA.
That's your collective bargaining agreement,
right? So we'll be in our last year of that next year, mm-hmm. right? So in 2023, we'll have to revisit. 18 days out, mm-hmm. I know what my schedule will be domestically. Mm-hmm. When I was on the international panel, it could be on a whim. You get an email, here's a flight itinerary, and you're gone for whatever number of days that may be. So a little bit more predictable in the MLS. So 18 days out, we get our stuff. Mm-hmm. Every Tuesday, those things come out. So yesterday, the appointment. So, for example, I have the match tonight. Yeah. I will be on the road again this weekend for a Saturday match.
Yeah, so you fly Friday, get home Sunday.
Get home on Sunday. And that's a normal time frame for a referee. If you're blowing a whistle, it's a normal time frame. As a fourth, as an assistant referee, you may have some flexibility to fly in on the day of the game if you so choose. As a VAR, same thing, which is now all centralized here in Atlanta. So I have one of those coming up. So I will be on the road a lot over the next couple of weeks, not giving up too much of.
I don't want you to do that, but I mean, you're flying out on a Tuesday. You've got a game on a Wednesday. You're flying back on a Thursday. You fly out on a Friday. Yeah. You got a game on a Saturday. You fly back on a Sunday. I mean, it is a grueling grind. And so, how long does your season last for you?
So we just got a email the other day of when preseason camp is for 2023. It's on January 19th, I believe.
Wow.
Yeah, so we'll finish right before World Cup this year, right? The MLS Cup will be early November.
Yeah.
Last year, my last game was this first week of December.
Yeah.
And then the preseason was right after that. So that was within a month of just having off to not think about soccer. And you need to reset, right? No matter what level you're doing, you got to find a way to step away, reset, and keep going, because otherwise it'll all run into each other. You don't give the games that you have the effort that they need to be, right? Or the attention that's needed. And even on a week like this, it's a challenge.
Yeah.
So I have a game tonight.
Right.
I'll go home and from a fitness standpoint.
Yeah.
So we have sports science that plays into all of this. Match day -1.
Yeah.
So yesterday will be this game prep. Gets the system ready, quick, hard, whatever. Match day +1 is always a regeneration day.
Right.
Match day +2 is a rest day.
Yeah.
Okay. I only have 2 days for this game.
Right.
So now it overmingles. So is match day +2 this week a rest day? Or is it a get your body ready to go day? And you really have to manage that. I'm 44 now. Right. So it gets more difficult as it goes.
Yeah.
But the schedule gets heavier.
Yes.
Next year, there's talk of the Apple deal moving all games to Saturdays.
Right.
Not sure there's enough calendar weeks to get in our season with just Saturdays.
Yeah.
But midweek games throw a wrinkle.
Yeah. No, I definitely don't think people appreciate the physical grind on the referees. You hear coaches and players coming to the MLS like getting shocked by, again, how big this country is. How long it takes to travel, how much that takes out of you, the climate variations depending on where you go as well, but getting that time in to then get fitness, get the proper food and get ready for that game. It's a whole nother thing that people rarely appreciate.
Absolutely. And the travel part is underestimated.
Oh,
right? That's
extremely.
That really takes its toll out of you. And the difference was 104 when we kicked in Austin.
Oh, yeah.
On grass.
Yeah.
On Saturday night.
Yeah.
It'll be 75 air conditioned tonight.
Yeah.
On turf.
Right.
Completely different experience.
Yeah. Right. It's funny. I mean, they built the trusses in Austin to cover the fans so that they're shaded.
Right.
There's no shade for you. I hope you enjoyed my conversation, part 1 with Ted Unkel, and will now listen to part 2 as well. If you'd like to see a topic covered or you want to interact with me, feel free to shoot me an email at refsneedlove2@gmail.com. Certainly, you could always reach out to me at refsneedlove2 on TikTok. Again, thank you so much for your support. It means the world to me, and may your future games be red card free.